That was old Slim. Have you ever heard Charlie talk about Slim, John?
Oh yeah, down in Texas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about Charlie?
You're Charlie. And I used to use the same mechanic in Texas, and that's who it was. Slim.
Slim, same account?
Same mechanic.
Oh, mechanic, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Papa, I'm very confused. Sometimes when I talk to you, you tell me I'm talking too loud, and then when I think I'm talking a normal thing, you say, what? What are you talking about? I can't hear you.
Well, you have to keep people off balance.
That's what it's all about. Props.
Yeah.
I need something to use for
Okay.
a mat there so I don't ruin the table. Did you put that there for my beer?
Yes. And let's clarify too what type of beer you're drinking.
Okay. There you go, Sharps.
Hey, product placement.
All right.
Non-alcoholic, yet tasty and delicious.
Stephen, funding.
Speak for yourself.
Funding for product placement.
Everybody knows it's no
Yeah.
good.
No.
No, it's better than no doodles,
It is better than
which
O'Doul's.
isn't saying much. Because O'Doul's is awful. Let's see.
What do you do?
Not much before, and I used up my voice as the reason we stopped the last time. So we may be here till 3 o'clock.
I was going to say, how long does that take?
No, not more than 30 minutes.
What's today's date?
The
Fifth.
5th.
It's the 5th of August.
April.
Okay, April.
One of those
Picky,
A months.
picky.
Is this thing running?
Yes, it is.
Oh.
It's
That's why
Saturday the 5th
Okay.
of
Asking
April,
for the date.
1997. And Ann's visit is coming to an end. I hate to think of it. I'll say the same thing I said about the children the last time we did this. What did I say? I wish they would all move from where they are to within not closer than 200 miles of where I live. Close enough to get there, but not so you're there all the time.
Can you take your glasses off? Thank you.
Yeah. You sure this was a Sharps?
Yeah.
No, we changed the labels on it.
Yeah. No, I meant that about that halogen. There's been numberless cases where somebody knocked it over and it fell into a curtain or a dust ruffle on a bed. And the temperature is at 200 or 300 degrees in that lens, in that filament.
Okay.
So imagine 300.
I can't afford them anyway, don't worry about it.
Well, you get more light with a halogen for the electricity you buy than you do.
Yeah, but aren't they really expensive? Like $11 a light bulb or something like that? Or is that something else?
6.5, I think, a replacement bulb would be. Oh, I've got a halogen work lamp in the garage. Do you want to set it someplace in behind the camera? Turn it on? You got enough light?
Yeah, we have enough light.
I can't get used to the fact that this needs so much less light than the film does.
Oh.
Kodak film,
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Well, usually the more light the better. But this will do.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, you guys need some help, huh?
I think so.
Okay. Let's start with Anne, since you're new here. Can you tell us of a childhood memory?
Okay, has anybody talked about Judy's secret wish yet?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Well, this is one of my favorite childhood memories. We the neighborhood kids and I got together, and we decided to put on a play.
Be careful not to fade out on the final phrase.
Okay. And this was a summer that I wanted a new bicycle, so we wrote this play about a little girl named Judy who wanted a bicycle for her birthday, but she knew it was too expensive, so she wasn't going to ask her parents. And do you remember the story?
Sure.
Oh, yeah. So she was telling her best friend, and her best friend's mother overheard the story, and her best friend's mother told Judy's mother, and then Judy got her bike for her birthday. That was the end of the play. Well, this was a play that was put on with the Rushes and, the
Holly?
Murphys, and no, Holly wasn't in it, and the Reddings, and all of us were in it. There were 4 girls in it, I guess, and when it came time to put the bicycle on the stage, which was the Rushes patio over here behind this house, the bicycle that we were going to use was going to be Kathy McGee's, I think, because hers was the newest bicycle in the neighborhood. But Mother and Daddy, unbeknownst to me, had bought me a bicycle, and when it was time to roll the bicycle onto the stage, it was my new bicycle. It was a great surprise, great fun.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
And what do you mean, did I know about it? I bought the bicycle.
I said, did you remember this story? It was a really neat day in the neighborhood too, because all the parents got into this for some reason, and all the kids in the neighborhood submitted artwork, and there was a clothesline in the backyard of the Rushes, and we hung up all of our artwork on the clothesline, and all the parents came and looked at the artwork first, and then they watched the play, and the Reddings next door to us made a big cake and lemonade, and the whole neighborhood got together and had this big party afterwards. It was great.
You're pretty slick, aren't you?
Yeah.
You predated Bill Clinton.
Police. So,
Oh, well.
yeah.
I withdraw the question.
The accusation.
Earlier today, you mentioned a story about you were on a car trip and Papa.
Oh yeah, Daddy, you should tell the story about the tractor on the way to Memphis.
I wasn't a tractor, it was on the way back, but it was
Close.
our car was a little, about a 45 Studebaker.
I remember that Studebaker. I must interrupt you. I remember you going to work in that Studebaker. Outside our house, the entire street would be filled with smoke every time you started.
No, but that was the Plymouth.
Oh.
I had a 39 Plymouth that I took to the airport.
Yeah, I remember that. One of my early childhood memories.
Yeah.
Very
We
good.
eventually graduated to a 1955 Cadillac with the fins like
Light blue.
Constellation. Yeah.
Do you remember
Light
what happened
blue.
to that Cadillac?
No.
Well, was it,
Somebody
how
threw
many
up
hot
at
dogs
it.
you ate that day? John ate about 6 or 8 hot dogs one day and threw up in the Cadillac. And we worked and worked and worked to get rid of the smell in the Cadillac, and we never could, so we finally gave it away.
It was
Poor
baloney,
boys
by the
home.
way.
Oh, baloney.
It was not hot
So-
dogs.
Yeah.
Worse than hot dogs.
Worse than
Actually, it's hot dogs rolled flat, you know.
Right. So, and it was just the premonition of John becoming a vegetarian, I think. It's just like his body revolting.
No, driving up from Memphis back to Kansas after a visit with grandmother down there, and some farm person ahead of us in the lane, maybe 100 yards or so. I could see him begin to slow down, so I didn't, because I was several hundred yards behind him, not 100. And I just watched him and waited for him to decide what he was going to do. And finally he decided what he was going to do, and what it was he was going to stop on the highway and check and be sure everything was all right, and then turn off of the highway and get out of my way. And I was bearing down on him at probably 75 miles to an hour. And he obviously finally it was obvious he wasn't going to stop, so I put the brakes on, and it didn't skid, but it just barely stopped before it hit him in the back. It just, I couldn't believe anybody would be that ignorant. But this guy was. I don't know, maybe he didn't like gray Studebakers. What do you think?
I think it was TWA pilots he was after.
Excuse me?
TWA pilots he was after.
Oh,
You think?
it could be. I wasn't in uniform though. But we did stop, and he did get off the highway so we could go ahead. And we didn't hit him. Is that thing,
Okay. Continue.
that was the sound system on the camera, right, that you just unplugged?
No.
Oh,
It's
A ticking
a ticking
thing.
clock.
oh, I couldn't hear it.
Daddy, do you remember when you and I went to Ireland together?
Yeah, I do. That was a happy time.
It was, I guess I had graduated from college then? Was that, or was
High
it
school, I
high
guess.
school? And you had a layover 3 or 4 or 5 days maybe even near Shannon?
Yeah. Hmm.
And we went together. And one of the things I remember about that trip was coming across a field of sheep and getting out and looking at the sheep. And I think we probably have slides of this. And
Probably.
I was I didn't know sheep then as I know sheep now. And I wasn't sure exactly how they were going to respond, but they all sort of came up and just were as curious about me as I was about them.
That's odd, because I've never seen sheep that wouldn't take off running the minute.
Well, I was
You
on
got
the
any
other side of the
place near
stone
to it?
fence, I think, so I
Oh.
was a safe distance from them, but they came up and they looked.
I do remember we rented a car and drove it around for a couple of days.
Mhm.
And we drove the Ring of Kerry.
That's right. I think we picked up an Irish hitchhiker once too.
We sure did,
Yeah.
yeah. And we couldn't quite understand everything he said,
Yeah.
but he was quite nice. And yeah, well, you were probably, I probably shouldn't have picked up a hitchhiker with you in the car.
Well, it was a long time ago. It was safer
Even
than
an
it is now.
Irishman.
You know, we have friends in Massachusetts now who lived in Ireland for 7 years, just 2 years ago, and they said that even now it's really, really safe, and that people leave their 6-year-olds alone while they go into town and stuff like that. It's just incredibly.
They're not gonna leave my
crime-free.
6-year-old
No.
alone while they go into town.
Well,
John, feel free.
I'm listening.
do you remember the trip you and I think it was Bill and Charles took with Daddy to Ireland, and you stayed at Dromoland Castle or something like that?
It was just me and Charles.
Just you and Charles.
Yeah. Queen Abbey is what I remember.
Yeah, wasn't that neat?
Yeah, it was.
And which was the one that had the medieval banquet and the mead and all that good stuff?
Yeah, I don't remember the name of that place.
Castle. It wasn't the one that they usually mention. Bally. Oh boy.
But it was good.
Long-term memory's gone now.
I developed a taste for mead there that I have to this day.
You what?
I developed a taste for mead there that I have to this day.
Yeah. I notice you have to have your mead every night or you can't go to sleep.
That's right.
It's a
A
mead
need
need.
for mead, yes.
You need to mead that mead, that mead need.
Oh.
Goodness.
Napogue Castle,
Yeah.
medieval banquet. They did a dramatized version of the famine times and of the history of Ireland from the beginning in a dramatic format. And they'd stop occasionally and sing
Okay.
something like Danny Boy, and of course they had to lead me out so I didn't disturb the audience with my weeping and wailing.
Yeah. I remember you bursting into tears at Waltzing Matilda one time.
They, Jeopardy had the question, what famous song did so-and-so write? And that's what it was, Waltzing Matilda.
Who's so and so?
I don't remember.
That was the next Jeopardy question.
Yeah. Danny Boy is the one that still gets me anytime though. Like sometimes I can wake up a weeping fit just to thinking about it.
It's the beer.
This thing has got too much bubbles in it.
Okay, help out, Dad, if there's anything.
Do you,
Come on, you must have some other memory of.
why don't you tell about your trip to over Europe with your mother when you were
Oh yeah,
Pursuing
reading
your
Gone with the
literary
Wind in the
avocation.
backseat of the car as we drove across the European
Yeah,
countryside.
that was a good trip. That was a trip that we went and bought, I think, wasn't that the blue Mercedes?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
we went to Europe and drove it around several weeks because it was cheaper to import a used car. And if you had a certain number of miles on it, then it was a used car. So that's what we did. And Charles and John and Mother and I spent the summer driving around Europe together. And some of the highlights of the trip were the how long can you go without washing any clothes contest between Charles and John? You recall that?
No. I recall the how many baskets of bread can we eat before they bring us dinner contest that we had.
I remember Charles throwing money in a toll booth and not waiting for the green light to come on and having sirens flash and trying to explain things in some foreign language, probably German, I think. And, and locking our keys in the car in
Yes.
Salzburg, I think.
Right.
You did that too? I locked the keys to a rental car in the trunk in the Ulm, I think, Cathedral City. Policeman came along and helped me get them out.
Well, I also remember we ended up at a police station actually, explaining our story and trying to get them to help us break into the car, which they did eventually. But
I think we had to call a locksmith.
maybe they did it, yeah.
Yeah.
But it was, I remember being in a police
You
station.
had what?
Call a locksmith.
Oh,
So,
And the Mercedes, you know, was set up with the driver's side door you couldn't lock by pushing the button down. You had to lock it with the key. So, you know, you couldn't lock the keys in the car. Except that somebody got out and left the keys in the ignition, and then when we got out of the back seat of the car, we locked all the doors from the back seat.
Mm. Bad shoe.
So that was the summer too that we were driving all around, and I was just totally wrapped up in Gone with the Wind. And I was reading Gone with the Wind all summer, and Mother was just enraged at the fact that we were driving through the Alps and the lake country in Italy, and just all this beautiful scenery, unbelievably beautiful stuff. And I'm sitting back there reading about Scarlet and Red, and she was appalled. But one time I was really glad that I had the book was when we went to see the Lipizzaner stallions, and I finally discovered that I truly was allergic to horses. And I walked into the place where they have the horses, and I just couldn't breathe, and I had to leave right away. I didn't get to stay for the show. So,
Did Mother go in and watch it, or?
yeah, she did. The happy ending of that story is that just last year, the American Lipizzaners came to Roanoke, Virginia, and I took 2 antihistamines and went and saw them with my kids and had a really good time. And they were beautiful horses.
Yeah, they are.
So, what else on that trip? There was something else that happened. Oh, that was the trip. Has anybody told this story about when Charles was going back with you? You met up with us somewhere.
I don't think we did develop that last time.
Was this in Paris?
Yeah.
Okay, so Daddy, okay, so there's John and me and Mother, and we're going our separate way, and Daddy and Charles are coming back to the States, because Daddy's been over and has to go fly a flight. And
Charles wimped out. Couldn't take it anymore.
so, and he was old enough to stay alone, I guess, stay home alone. But anyway, we're all discussing whether or not we should stay together or what we should do, and we finally come to the conclusion that it would be cheaper, since John and Mother and I were going somewhere else anyway, to get outside of Paris to find a hotel. It would be a lot less expensive. It's probably about 3 or 4 in the afternoon when we're separating. And so we get in the car and we start driving out of Paris. And Mother looks at John and me and she says, you know, it's too expensive to stay at the Hilton with 5 people, but it's really not too expensive with 3. So she turns the car around and we go back and we get our TWA discount at the Hilton, and we stay at the Hilton, the 3 of us, overnight. And the next morning we go down to check out, and lo and behold, who was there but Charles and Daddy. So we had all come to the same decision independently.
Actually, Charles and I did have a little bit better excuse. We rode a lame subway, metro, into the heart of the city and went to the Crew Hotel, and expecting to get a good rate and not to have any trouble, but as it turned out, they didn't have any room. So we thought that over for a while and decided that rather than charge all over Paris trying to find a hotel we could afford, we'd go back out to the Hilton too. Not 2, because we didn't know it. These sneaks had come driven halfway to Brussels and then not
that far.
not really.
Yeah.
You couldn't find a barn with a manger, right?
Yeah.
No.
So.
But anyway, that was one of the adventures.
Mm-hmm.
I used to fly with a pilot, Frank Burcham, that I think I mentioned him on this last, on the other episode we talked about. Where am I?
Frank Burcham.
Yeah, I am lost Frank Burcham, but he would you'd get in the cockpit and he'd say, "Has anybody got a good anecdote for us?" And he was real great on jokes. a wonderful gentleman too. He didn't use vulgar language in the cockpit. I always said if I couldn't be myself, I'd rather be Frank Burcham than anybody else. What gives?
Hmm?
What gives?
Nothing. I'm looking in the viewfinder.
Oh, I thought you were looking here.
What about Harry Smith? Tell some Harry Smith stories.
Oh, Harry flew co-pilot for me quite a bit, and we enjoyed it. We're flying midnight flights out of Kansas City, cargo flights to the West Coast, and we put it on automatic pilot, and sit down behind the pilot seats and play gin rummy. Occasionally glancing out the window, of course.
What
But
kind of planes were these?
DC-4.
Oh,
It didn't have any passengers in it.
oh.
Occasionally we had a plane load of monkeys, usually going to Indianapolis for
That's a
the,
rude way to talk about your passengers, isn't it?
I was gonna say, sounds like my band.
for the
Research?
for research at Eli Lilly. They made vaccine for using the monkeys.
Mm.
Wow.
One time, one of the cages got open, not my flight, somebody else's flight, and the guys in the cockpit suddenly realized that there was a monkey sitting between them. One of them, later on, he began to embellish it by adding that he reached down for part of his sandwich, his lunch. And the monkey had beat him to it.
Oh, that's good.
Golly.
I like the story about when Harry Smith would help you parking the
Oh, yeah.
airplanes.
I was parking and we were coming up on the loading ramp, and Harry says, come ahead, come ahead, come ahead. I don't know why it wasn't on my side of the airplane, but he said, come ahead, and then he said, oh, I'm sorry. I wonder if that came through that sound system. Anyway, Harry said, oh, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
And we almost did hit something, I guess, laughing at that remark. Harry and I used to play quite a bit of ping pong when we'd fly into Los Angeles. There was a ping pong table at the hotel we stayed in. I know one time I made a particularly vicious cut at it and rolled it over and then I hit myself in the side of the head with it. Didn't bleed, but it turned a pretty odd blue and green.
Magic moments in sports.
Yeah.
Sports and flying.
Oh. Wow.
So tell about the time we went to get Ann up in the morning and couldn't find her.
I don't remember that.
You don't remember that?
I will after you tell me.
You went into her room and to wake her up, and she wasn't in her bed. We looked all over the house and we couldn't find her, and we looked out in the yard and couldn't find her. And eventually, we discovered she had fallen off the bed in the middle of the night and rolled under it, and did not wake up. She was still sleeping. Everybody's shouting for her throughout the house.
Golly. I guess I do remember that now. That was quite a deal.
That reminds me about not wanting to go to kindergarten. And people would, I think this worked once actually, that you all came in and tried to wake me up and decided, well, if I was that tired that I really didn't need to go. And I, of course, could overhear this entire conversation.